Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, for 1 year as we read through St. Faustina's diary. Join me, Amy Thomas, each day for a short reading out of the diary which brought us a deeper understanding of Christ's divine mercy. Hey there, Catholic pilgrims. It's day 83 of our readings from St. Faustina's diary. So today we're just kind of going to be going through the different things that she's writing about. They're more just like short little journal entries today instead of a longer thought on something specific. But there's some good stuff in there that we can talk about, especially talking about, do we have attachments to things? And I want to go a little deeper than just material things when we talk about it. So today we are reading from Notebook 1, Numbers 336 through 341. 1934. During Holy Mass, when the Lord Jesus was exposed in the Blessed Sacrament before Holy Communion, I saw two rays coming out from the Blessed Host, just as they are painted in the image, one of them red and the other pale. And they were reflected on each of the sisters and wards, but not on all in the same way. On some of them, the rays were barely visible. It was the last day of the children's retreat. November 22nd, 1934. On one occasion, my spiritual director, Father Sapotsko, told me to look carefully into myself and to examine whether I had any attachment to some particular object or creature, or even to myself, or whether I engaged in useless chatter. For all these things, he said, get in the way of the Lord Jesus, who wants complete freedom in directing your soul. God is jealous of our hearts and wants us to love him alone. When I started to look deep within myself, I did not find any attachment to anything, but as in all things that concern me, so also in this matter, I was afraid and distrustful of myself. Tired out by this detailed self-examination, I went before the Blessed Sacrament and asked Jesus with all my heart, Jesus, my spouse, treasure of my heart, you know that I know you alone, and that I have no other love but you. But Jesus, if I were about to become attached to anything that is not you, I beg and entreat you, Jesus, by the power of your mercy, let instant death descend upon me. For I prefer to die 1,000 times than to be unfaithful to you once in even the smallest thing. At that moment, Jesus suddenly stood before me, coming I know not from where, radiant with unbelievable beauty, clothed in a white garment, with uplifted arms, and he spoke these words to me. My daughter, your heart is my repose. It is my delight. I find in it everything that is refused me by so many souls. Tell this to my representative. And then an instant later, I saw nothing, but a whole ocean of consolations entered my soul. I know now that nothing can put a stop to my love for you, Jesus, neither suffering, nor adversity, nor fire, nor the sword, nor death itself. I feel stronger than all these things. Nothing can compare with love. I see that the smallest things done by a soul that loves God sincerely have an enormous value in his holy eyes. November 5th, 1934. One morning, when it was my duty to open the gate to let out our people who deliver baked goods, I entered the little chapel to visit Jesus for a minute and to renew the intentions of the day. Today, Jesus, I offer you all my sufferings, mortifications, and prayers for the intentions of the Holy Father, so that he may approve the feast of mercy. But Jesus, I have one more word to say to you. I am very surprised that you bid me to talk about this feast of mercy, for they tell me that there is already such a feast. And so why should I talk about it? And Jesus said to me, and who knows anything about this feast? No one. Even those who should be proclaiming my mercy and teaching people about it often do not know about it themselves. That is why I want the image to be solemnly blessed on the first Sunday after Easter, and I want it to be venerated publicly so that every soul may know about it. Make a novena for the Holy Father's intention. It should consist of 33 acts, that is, repetition that many times of the short prayer, which I have taught you, to the divine mercy. So you have to love Christ's answer when she's like, why do I have to talk about the Feast of Mercy again? Because we already have one. And he's like, who knows about it? Does anybody know about it? So, I love that response. Is anybody talking about this Feast of Mercy? No, nobody is. So I'm trying to do this in a different way. We're going to do it on the Sunday after Easter, and we're going to have this image, and I want it to be venerated, and I want people to talk about it publicly. I want people to know about my mercy. Because he even says, even people who know about the Feast of Mercy Day aren't talking about it, so let's start talking about it. But I love his answer. It's just so, I don't know, just so real, I guess. So, the other things I wanted to talk about, the first one was in 336, she's in front of the Blessed Sacrament and she sees the two rays coming out of the Blessed Host, just like the two rays in the image. And she says that they're reflected on the sisters in the wards, but not all in the same way. And she said on some of them, the rays were barely visible. And my first question was, why? What does that mean? And so I started thinking about it and I was like, does that mean because their faith is weak and so the rays just aren't shining brightly? Or do they not fully understand his divine mercy? And so because they don't understand it fully, their rays aren't reflected upon them. I'm curious as to what exactly this means when she says that the rays were barely visible. Like, what is it, something that's lacking within these sisters, or is it some kind of knowledge that they don't have yet that maybe keeps them from fully understanding Christ's mercy or something like that? I don't know. It was very curious, and I have often thought that people who I have met in my life that are extremely holy really shine with a special aura. I don't want to use aura because that kind of sounds kind of cultish, but they just shine with a special light. I met Saint Gianna's daughter at the World Meeting of Families in Philadelphia in 2015. And, this is the daughter of a saint. And she's this little tiny woman. And when I met her and I got to say hello to her, she just shined with this light. It wasn't like I could actually see a light, but there was just something coming out of her that you're like, yeah, this woman has been touched by holiness. And, I've known a couple of other people in my life where I'm like, wow, yes, I can see the holiness radiating off of you. And there are people who call themselves Christians that I know aren't living out their faith whatsoever, and that light's not there. And I wonder if that has something to do with these rays being barely visible on people. I don't know. I'm just guessing and just wondering out loud, but for sure, holy people, they reflect the light. May not be a actual visible, oh, clearly you have a light shining on your head, but just a light. They have Christ shining through them. That's all there is to it. But the second thing I wanted to really focus on was her confessor asked her to go through her life and go do kind of like an examination of conscience and see if she has an attachment to anything. And so she does. She does it so well it even wears her out. She's exhausted and tired after it. And I'm like, wow, man, I have never done that. So she's obviously doing a very thorough job. It is a good question to ask ourselves. And, we all have attachments to things. We have attachments to our house and obviously to our kids and our spouses and our family members and our friends and pets, which that is the topic for another day. People's attachments to their pets tends to the point of idolization. But I've written a whole blog about that. I won't get into that because I know it will draw ire. I love pets. I have 2 pets, but pets have a place and it's not at the level of humans. But again, that's a topic for another day. But do we have attachments to things? And sometimes we have to look a little deeper than just material things. We have to look at, do I have an attachment to comfort? Do I have an attachment to pleasures? Do I have an attachment to fear? I think, This is a huge one for a lot of people. And that sounds weird to say, having an attachment to fear, but it's an actual thing. There are a lot of people that totally and utterly give in to fear because of safety. And maybe that's a better way to say it. Do I have an attachment to safety? And that isn't to say that we should go, ride around without our seatbelts on or be completely reckless and don't follow any rules or laws or anything like that. But there are times when we can be so fearful and so concerned and attached to safety that we forget to completely live, that we forget that we aren't meant to live in such fear. How many times does Christ say, be not afraid? Do not be afraid. And yet so many of us, I know I do, I struggle with fear a lot, and it's mostly an attachment to safety for my kids and my husband and even myself and my family members. And that's not wrong to want to make sure that your family members are safe, but sometimes there's this paralyzing attachment to it that causes us to stop living and to stop doing God's will. And we hole up and really hunker down because we're just so afraid. And that's something that I know I struggle with and recognize within myself. So, do we have an attachment to pornography or lust or, even just binge watching Netflix? All of those things can be attachments, and they can all take the place of Christ. I know a huge one just came into my head. I don't know why didn't think about it before, but the attachment to social media is huge for all of us, and it's something that we need to recognize. And it's hard for me. I know there's an attachment to social media, especially now that I'm here in Turkey and it's my connection to the States and everything. I know there's an attachment there. And, because I post every day and I blog and I podcast, I get on social media because I want to interact, and I do enjoy spreading the good news to Christ. But how often do I get sucked into stupid memes and arguments and just looking at things that are pointless and meaningless in my life, and I've wasted that time when I could have been doing something way more productive. So I like the fact that her confessor encouraged her to think about that. I've never had a confessor encourage me to think about that, and I think it's something that's really good and something that we can look at and possibly need to confess, because we don't want our attachments to turn into idols. Obviously, we're going to be attached to some things. I'm attached to my kids because I love them. Attachments can turn into idols, and idols take the place of Christ, and we don't ever want that to happen. So definitely a really good thing to go through. And maybe, if you're journaling, or, if you're writing along with this notebook as you listen, maybe take today and write out your attachments. That would be a really good practice. And if you're going to confession soon, maybe that's something you need to bring to confession. I know that I could do that for sure. So definitely a good practice. So I will leave you there, Catholic pilgrims. I will see you back here for day 84. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.